Hello. I'm so excited to be here tonight to share with you this bonkers book that I've been writing for the last year. Whenever people ask me what it's about, I just choke and stammer and don't really know what to say, but I'm going to try to do better for you tonight. Before I start, I just want to give a big thank you to Stuart and the team at Grand Performances, to Brenda and the folks at Cultural Affairs who have really kept me on task, the city of Los Angeles for investing public funds in artists. My writers group for a lot of feedback that helped me figure out what this is I'm doing. My family who are here tonight from very far away. And to my partner Bill for helping me manage the variety of emotional states that I've experienced over the course of this project and preparing for this performance. So that said, I'm going to read you a little bit from this book, but first I'm going to do a little TED Talk about what this book is. So the first thing you need to know is that there was this guy named Dante Alighieri, and he was born in Florence in May 2065, which makes him a Gemini, but we're not going to hold that against him. When he was 12, he fell in love at first sight with an 8-year-old girl named Beatrice, but then he was promised in marriage to another woman, but never gave up his fixation on Beatrice. Super cool. In 1295, Dante became really involved with political life in Florence. He loved Florence. It was truly the city in his heart. Unfortunately, during this time, medieval Italy was a total mess. There was a lot of infighting between these two political factions occurring over centuries. It was like a very slow motion Game of Thrones. No dragons. Dante's faction ultimately won this conflict, but as they often do, they started to fight amongst themselves, and they split into two new factions, and then Dante was on the losing side of that. So he was actually exiled from Florence, the city that lives in his heart, and he was told if he ever tried to return, he'd be burned at the stake. So that's a great, don't come back. Because Dante loved Florence so much, his exile was oh, shoot. Sorry. I spoiled the joke. It's coming later. Act surprised. All right, I'm on this slide. Dante's exile was a constant source of pain, and once he was out of Florence, he started writing this book, which we now call the Divine Comedy. It's made up of 3 sections: Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso. It takes place in the year 1300, before Dante was exiled, and when he was around age 35, or what they then considered the middle of life. Very interestingly, he made himself the main character of this poem. Love that main character energy. We're going to carry that with us. In the book, after getting lost in a dark wood, Dante runs into the very dead Roman poet Virgil, who's like, "Would you like a free walking tour of hell? Follow me." And so they walk through the 9 circles of hell. He goes into purgatory, and then he gets passed off to, guess who? Beatrice in heaven. Okay, so as he moves through hell, Dante encounters many familiar people, notable figures from Greek and Roman mythology, but also folks he knew back in Florence. Since he wrote this after his exile, Dante took an opportunity to settle some scores. If Dante ever said to your face, "I'll see you in hell," you're in the book. And you're miserable. So in some ways, I view Dante's Inferno as kind of the original Burn book. And that is some Scorpio energy. Let's just acknowledge that. So the book that I'm writing is a contemporary retelling of the Inferno. Dante's journey through the various circles of the underworld and their corresponding sins form the scaffolding that my characters follow, but though in my book, the characters are zigzagging across Los Angeles over the course of a night. Each place my characters visit is a re-envisioning of a circle and the idea of sin, and reflects on this city that I love. I'm not from California, but spiritually, I've been a Californian my whole life. My book is footnoted to identify references to the Inferno, and it also incorporates footnotes about the history of LA. Some footnotes use elements of the story in the book to explain the art of writing a novel, while others are written in the voice of a scholar who has annotated my book after my death, because I am pretty sure scholars are going to be studying this book. So I'm doing the work for them in advance to make sure they get it right. So Lastly, and probably most weirdly, the book is a character in my book, and it is very disappointed in me as I'm writing it. So you will hear the novel be interrupted constantly by an antagonistic voice that is both the voice of the critic, the voice of my own self-doubt, perhaps the voice of Satan. We'll see. This is what a page of the manuscript looks like, just to give you a sense of how all these parts work together. So tonight I'm going to share a portion of the first chapter, which you're seeing here, the first page. But I needed a little help from my friends, so I'd like to welcome up Tim Cummings. Tim is starring as voice of the book, and my friend Amanda Fletcher. Tonight, Amanda will be playing footnotes. And with that, we're going to start Canto 1. Thursday night traffic in Los Angeles is a form of hell.
Footnote. Charles Jensen employed various devices at the top of this book to announce it as a retelling of the Inferno. The chapters take names from the cantos, or individual poems that comprise the Inferno. And the reference to hell here is a wink and a nod to Dante's journey through the 9 circles of the underworld. He used this narrative device to scaffold this novel, which is also a memoir, which is also a reflection of the city of Los Angeles, just as the Inferno is a memoir in the guise of a poem, filming the culture of Florence in the year 1314. These footnotes, added posthumously for this annotated edition of Walking in Circles, will both illuminate the intersections with Dante's work as well as Jensen's biography and information source from the website The Complete and Unabridged History of Los Angeles, using the Internet Archive's last caching of this since deleted digital publication.
A form of hell? Huh?
Thank you.
A form of hell? Huh? Isn't that a little heavy-handed, even for you?
Excuse me, who the hell are you?
Me?
Yeah, you. What are you doing inside my novel?
Oh, you're calling this a novel? Well, that's a novel idea, I suppose. Who am I? Well, we'll get to that later. For now, you can think of me as the better version of you, the Virgil to your Dante, the one trying to keep you from ruining this book.
It's the first line. Give me a minute. I have to start somewhere.
And you failed at launch, Charlie. What a shame to see you stumble right out the gate.
I don't remember asking for your help. Certainly not your opinion. Both seem pretty worthless.
It just feels like someone ought to slap some sense into you before it's too late.
Let me get things going.
I got it. Okay, fine.
The drive from his office to his home measures only 3 miles, but the IV drip of cars down the 101 means Donovan might spend a full hour with his hands on the wheel, a tightness between his shoulder blades, the sore knuckles of a boxer. Why Thursdays punish commuters so much more than the other nights, Donovan couldn't say. No road from the broad freeway spans to the svelte side streets was immune from the disease. All of them swollen with steel and rubber and plastic. If the city were a typewriter, someone smashed every key at once, locking them all in place.
Footnote. That this novel begins with a traffic jam in Los Angeles, describing the main character's frustration with his circumstances, while also acknowledging tacit participation in his own struggle, is a means by which Jensen pandered to preconceived notions of the city of Los Angeles. Jensen knew what people perceived of LA, having lived here for more than a decade. As an author, Jensen frequently mined his lived experiences in the development of his literary works, though he sometimes cloaked them in the guise of fictional stories, or as a speaker of a poem he can plausibly deny was his own voice.
The car ahead of Donovan slides forward a few feet, Just as he shifts his foot from the brake, his face flushes with the red lights of his predecessor slamming to a stop. Donovan creeps over the inches. Even snail's progress is progress. He should have left earlier. He knows this. But Kimmy stopped by his cube in the last hour of work to gossip about whether or not Felicia in accounting was still sleeping with Marcus from facilities, and the tea was both exceptionally hot and deliciously tasty. Donovan exits early to follow those little streets, tired tonight of the lurch and choke pulse of the freeway. The Vermont Avenue off-ramp has 2 lanes, and he slips through the cracks between cars, each one a brick in the wall between him and freedom. He's craving Lebanese food from the takeout place down the street.
Footnote: Marouche, established 1981. Jensen once dined here with friend and mentor Lou Matthews, whose literary works have often peeled back the veneer of Los Angeles to reveal the rich cultural landscape that defines the city to its lifelong residents. Source: unabridged history.
And hopes Kyle will pick up the beams his longing radiates from his mind. He could text again, sure, but Kyle could reach out and ask. So now I'm going to jump forward in this chapter just a little bit. He's home, Kyle is there, they just ate dinner. Kyle slides the last plate into the dishwasher's lower rack. A red smear, the ghost of chicken tikka masala, banners across it like a gash. We still going to that thing? What thing? That get-together, Kyle clarifies. Some friends were meeting up for a drink in Echo Park. No reason except it had been a while. Kyle suggested they ask his friend Matthew to tag along, but they hadn't spoken of it since the initial invitation from Donovan's friend Katie. Donovan drops a dishwasher pod into the slot and closes the machine. If you want. Was Kyle up for it? He seemed so worn out when Donovan got home, and Donovan wasn't eager to get back into the car he'd been liberated from after his commute. Echo Park wasn't far, but their apartment was closer, and they were already in it. Kyle shrugs. It's mostly your friends. In the dialect of their relationship, this means the decision fell to Donovan. Donovan leans against the counter. He weighs the options. They don't show up. Folks are a little butthurt. Maybe they don't show up next time he invites them out. As he aged, Friday night socializing became more and more difficult. He craved the entropy of staying home, stretched across the couch, watching something forgettable. If they went, they could at least decide how long they stayed, and showing up, even briefly, would be meaningful to their friends. We should make an appearance. He leans towards Kyle and wraps his arm around his waist, just for a little while. Kyle kisses him. His lips are warm and soft, his stubble like 100 pine needles on his chin. He presses his body against Donovan's. I could use a drink after today. Have you ever turned down a drink? Kyle's eyes search Donovan's. I don't like to be negative. They laugh together, Kyle's head following casually onto Donovan's shoulder. There's no better emotional balm than touch. They do the bare minimum to get themselves ready, brush their teeth side by side in the bathroom mirror. Donovan's belly forms a mound beneath his t-shirt of such a gentle curve he can convince himself no one sees it. The metabolism that slimmed him, even after repeat meals of double quarter pounders with cheese and supersized fries, had given up on him and moved on to a younger man. Now, watching what he ate wasn't enough. His body needed to move, even in the most exhausted of times, or it shored up fat cells with the fervor of squirrels in autumn. Kyle, on the other hand, though shorter, kept his lean build. He too lost the defined abs of his 20s, but his trim waist was a built-in and permanent feature.
Oh crap, he's still writing.
I'm trying to write here. People who don't understand how to create art should spend less time criticizing those who do.
I know a lot of people who would push back on your assessment of your skills.
Are the people who would push back on the assessment of my skills in the room with us?
Well, they might be holding this book someday. Right now, I'm not too optimistic about that, though. Okay, why don't you go back to telling the story, O wise and powerful novelist?
I believe I just asked you to shut up, so I could do just that. Interesting how you're only willing to concede power on your own terms.
But as a novelist, isn't that what you're doing? Retaining the godlike power over the world you've created and the people that you've placed in it? How is what you do any different than a child playing with dolls? Quickly.
Well, I'm older.
And not getting any younger. Better get back to the book.
Donovan takes Fountain to Sunset, passing the Betty Davis mural near their apartment.
Footnote: Inspired by the May 22nd, 1986 episode of The Tonight Show, when Johnny Carson asked Betty what was the fastest way for a woman to get into Hollywood, and she said, "No beat skipped, take Fountain." It remains solid advice. Art by Panhandle Slim, 2011. Source, unabridged history.
Kyle poked at his phone during the drive while the effusive yodels of Chapel Roan filled the space between them. The Semi-Tropic is an Echo Park hidden gem.
Footnote. So named for the Semi-Tropic Spiritualist Association, an early 20th century cult-adjacent organization dedicated to communing with spirits as part of the larger national obsession. The group purchased land and eventually constructed a small campus and sought tax-exempt church status. 25 pounds of disappeared dynamite, lawsuits and tax evasion charges, and finally a 1908 raid shut the group down. Source, unabridged history.
The kind of bar that sprouted amid gentrification by young white people, a process that reinforced their power to decide which businesses remained and which were replaced by artisanal kombucha apothecaries and self-taught jewelry artisans. The exposed brick and vaguely industrial shelves of the bar, the craft cocktails and microbrews all reeked of this moment in time, the aesthetic fantasy of new seeming old. Katie loves the Semi-Tropic for all these reasons, and anytime the plans were up to her, she chose it. Over time it grew on Donovan, but it would never be a place that felt like his. It was on loan from the heterosexual community, and he, Kyle, and their queer friends were visitors in the space. Katie waves with the enthusiasm of an organic cult leader when the bar's darkness splits when the door opens. "Donnie!" She rushes over for a hug, gripping her vodka soda in one hand while throwing the other across his back. Katie pulls them over to the table, where Kyle's friend Matthew, an actor, sits in a black t-shirt. Ryan and Rob, a couple, sit next to him, their similar haircuts and generically thin white gay features making them look more like siblings than lovers. Donovan's friend Jack, a paralegal with skin so pasty it glows in any light, and Soren, who has the smooshed features of a pug, round out the table. They exchange their hugs and hellos, and in seconds, Kyle bellies up to the bar, finger in the air to get attention.
You're calling him an alcoholic on page 11?
I'm not responsible for your inferences. I'm just describing what happens.
Okay, so Kyle is not an alcoholic then, even though the person you're basing him on...
Stop.
Okay, you called him an alcoholic for years. You said he might have been doing drugs.
My therapist at the time said that, not me. The drugs part, at least. And that he likely cheated on me.
So is this revenge? Adding him into the book so you can control him and put him through the misery you couldn't after he did what he did to you?
I'm not after revenge. I'm just, mining my life for things I can adapt. I wrote a memoir about the real stuff, how it happened. This is different. This is how things could have been.
Okay, well, you take too long. Has anybody ever told you you're verbose?
Has anyone ever told you to fuck off?
Is it too on the nose if I remind you that hell is other people?
Do you always answer a question with a question?
Do you?
You're miserable.
One of us is.
Kyle looks over at Donovan, eyebrows raised. He mouths the word beer at him. He takes a seat at the table and starts catching up. Kyle carries the beer over, setting the sweating glass on the table. A ring forms around its base.
Already reinforcing that inferno circle imagery, huh?
Katie gives them an update on her situationship, which ended in what she calls a whiz of glory, when the guy peed her bed one night after drinking too much. How many red flags do I need? She sets her drink on the table. Just one. Rob snorts. Technically, that's a yellow flag. In a related story, I'm enjoying life with a new mattress, Katie adds. Conversation moves on to politics, the mayoral race, and their suspicions that the leading candidate angles to be president someday.
Footnote. While much of this novel is rooted in the reality of Los Angeles, there's no need to name the mayoral candidate, likely because all mayors of Los Angeles harbor presidential ambitions. Source, unabridged history.
They grieve the latest mass shooting, lament the proliferation of guns in this country, and the lessening sense of safety this fact brings. Rob's mother's struggles with Alzheimer's stokes tension between him and his sister. By default, she's the primary caretaker because she's closer. Kyle gets up to get another drink, and Donovan nods to indicate he'll have another beer. There's so much life going on among them, all of it happening outside this room, waiting for them when they leave. Donovan feels blessed by the relatively small amount of drama in his life.
So we're definitely not writing a thinly veiled memoir then.
I don't have a lot of drama. Plus, as you previously noted, I'm retelling the Inferno. How is that memoir?
If I had eyes, I'd be rolling them at you, babe.
Sometimes my life is boring.
And you hate that. I can point to any number of times that you've curried some drama because you were bored.
Fine. I like other people's drama, but not my own. I'd rather be boring.
I've got good news for you.
Katie had a celebrity sighting at her local coffee shop last week when she'd just come from the gym without showering and looked like she'd been rode hard and put away wet. As she talks, nearing the climax when she and Mr. Up-and-Coming have their unbearable meet-cute tarnished indelibly because she looks a mess, Donovan spots, in the corner of his eye, someone approach Kyle at the bar. Kyle hugs him in this weird bro hug Donovan's never seen him do before. Kyle's eyes snap over to Donovan, scanning to see if his boyfriend was watching. Donovan tries to play cool. Kyle can have friends he doesn't know, it's fine. Maybe it's someone from work, maybe it's an old college friend. Kyle waves for Donovan to join them. "This is Jay," Kyle says as Donovan approaches. Jay has brown hair and what looks like an old-timey beard, but of course is just the latest hipster facial hair craze. His eyes are small and dark, like a fish. "What's up?" Jay holds out his hand. The bro energy is real. Donovan pumps his hand, a shock of cold in his warm mitt. Donovan glances between Jay and Kyle, waiting for more context. "Jay's an old friend," Kyle says.
Do you think readers will believe that?
"Why wouldn't they? I haven't indicated Kyle's not trustworthy."
Yet.
You're that person yelling out spoilers at the horror movie, aren't you?
The only horror that I'm faced with is your loose prose and lazy plotting.
It's still chapter 1. I'm setting things up.
That's the problem. You think that writing fiction is like playing chess. But you're both players, so there's just no tension. You're going to win, and it's going to be boring to watch it happen.
Maybe that's why people don't read books while they're in the process of being written.
You would be lucky if anyone ever reads this.
Rude. Kyle bumps Jay's shoulder. "How long has it been?" "Couple years, I guess." The bartender sets down Donovan's pint and a second old-fashioned for Kyle. Donovan sips as Jay and Kyle exchange a look. He's not sure what it means. Kyle's demeanor changed after Jay's arrival. Donovan feels like an intrusion, a vibe Kyle never gave him before. They want him to leave. "Nice meeting you," Donovan says, lifting his beer as if toasting. His eyes meet Kyle's before Donovan turns away. They look different. Colder, not vacant, but vacated. Should he worry? Katie's finished her story about the celebrity. Donovan didn't even get to hear who it was in the end. Soren recaps a movie he just saw that he thinks is an early Oscar contender. Between Ryan and Rob, Donovan sees Kyle turn away from his eyeline in the middle of talking to Jay. Jay stares at the ground, taking in Kyle's words. Donovan compliments himself on being such a cool, relaxed boyfriend. Everything is fine. This is normal. Donovan turns to Soren and mentions he and Kyle saw the same movie last week. Donovan doesn't add that he hated it, then settles back into his chair. Conversation plows on, words zipping back and forth around him, flows like lava from idea to idea, growing, expanding, reaching into every corner of their lives. When Kyle rejoins the table, he slides down the back of the chair and settles with his eyes glued to the cathedral of empty cocktail glasses and half-full drinks. Donovan tries to guide Kyle's up to his face. When he does, Kyle's expression is shock, blank, nothingness. "Are you okay?" Donovan mouths. Kyle nods slowly. Donovan takes a sip of his beer. He watches their friends, but now everything has changed, shifted. The room has a tilt, like a house in Ranchos Palos Verdes threatening to surf down the hillside to its death in a ravine.
Footnote. Landslides are wreaking havoc on this California city. Locals vow to stay. BBC, September 7th, 2024.
Donovan pretends to listen. He smiles when it feels like he should smile. He chuckles when someone tries to be funny. Kyle does the same, the kind of human mimicry to keep people from expressing concern or looking deeper into him. That's the challenge with good friends. They're trained to see through these social defenses, the ones strangers might accept as our whole selves. We're eager to believe people we've never met have no interiority because acknowledging every stranger's rich inner life means ours is just that much less special. We safeguard the intensity of our belief in our own uniqueness. Perhaps Kyle and Donovan were fooling everyone but each other. And this is the cost and benefit of deep love. Slowly losing your ability to harbor the secret of yourself from the person you've invited in. They won't hesitate to rattle your windows, jiggle the locked doorknob, and pull back the drapes to shed light on what we want to keep dark.
Footnote. Readers of Jensen's work will recognize the concern with intimate relationships, a common obsession in prior books. Broken human beings either fix themselves or become fixated on their injury, obsessed with preserving the mementos of violence like the mind is a museum. See The First Risk, Living Things, The Strange Case of Maribel Dixon, Break Up, Break Down, Instructions Between Takeoff and Landing.
Kyle tips his cocktail back. The ice rattles like a pair of dice against the glass. He looks at Donovan with raised eyebrows, their silent signal for, let's go. Donovan throws back his beer and stands. We need to go. Protests, complaints, stay a while. It's early, Katie insists. Call in sick tomorrow. Kyle holds up his hands and smiles. We're old and married. Married? Donovan mocks surprise. Kyle smirks. He seems himself again, normal. His eyes light up the way they normally do when he's being cheeky. Married enough. Donovan gives him an incredulous look. I guess we'll see about that. The group lets out a coo. Someone whistles. To show he's kidding, Donovan takes Kyle's hand and waves to the group with the other. Have a good night. Kyle keeps his hand as they walk out the door. It feels warm and right and comfortable. It feels like it belongs to Donovan. At the car, Kyle pulls Donovan by the shoulders into a kiss. Sudden, deep. Donovan falls into it. They don't kiss much like this much anymore. The sweltering morass of lips and tongues and breath. The desperate attempts to fit their shifting ovals precisely onto one another, implying a perfect fit is possible, even if it takes all night. Over time, the lust of their early relationship softened like well-worn denim into something comfortable, something comforting. The kiss makes Donovan's heart beat faster. Donovan's hands reach around Kyle's back and press him closer, the insistence of his dick pulsing exclamations. Kyle grips him tighter. When the kiss slows, Kyle drifts back. I love you. I love you. Kyle's eyes rifle through Donovan's, and Donovan lets him. He feels seen in the only way that matters. Donovan leans toward him again and drapes into a hug. Kyle whispers into his ear, let's go home. Thank you. Thank you to Tim and Amanda for stepping in and bringing parts of the book to life.
Thank you.